Welcome. This is, of course, Mr. Ford from MrFordsClass.com, as well as Mr. Ford's Guide to the A+ exam. Today we're going to talk about Topic 12, sound cards. This is a continuation from our previous discussion when we started talking about sound basics. We're still trying to figure out this whole Ustream thing, so if you are not actually in my class, please have patience with us. These things should be getting a little bit better. Of course, you can check out the feeds that we have. There's a bunch of netcasts currently on iTunes. If you search word Scott Ford, you can find the vast majority of them. So what we're going to do right now is, like I said, we're going to talk about sound cards. So let's begin. The card versus the adapter. The sound card is any device that provides sound for the computer. A sound card is a sound adapter is anything in the computer that actually provides sound for the computer itself. So let's say you have an integrated sound built into your computer. That would be the sound adapter. It's built into your computer and provides sound for whatever applications you use. A sound card is an actual physical card that you insert into a computer. What are the differences between the two? Honestly, there really isn't any difference. It's kind of a geek argument waiting to happen as far as terminology goes. But in case you're ever asked, or in case you ever want to know for whatever reason, the adapter is any device that provides sound for the computer. The sound card is an actual thing you could buy in Newegg or Tiger Direct, where you actually install it into the computer itself. Again, really not that important. It's more or less a geek argument that nobody really cares about. When discussing sound cards, there are three things we need to be aware of, the 3 C's of sound cards, and that is components, connections, and characteristics. Now, just to give you a little heads up, we are not going to get into the individual type of sound cards. Whenever we start doing discussions of technology, the danger is, of course, that as I'm talking to you about, let's say, a current sound card, a week from now, that's out-of-date information. But the principles more or less remain the same. And the reason why I say more or less remains the same is because weird things can happen. New technologies can emerge which change the rules for everything. But I really don't see that change coming in the next week for sound cards. But just in case, I covered my butt. The 3 basic components of a sound card are the processor, the converters, and the sample rate generators. The processor, which is also known as a sound generator or a synthesized engine, takes the data from the CPU and converts it to sound. You might remember this if you've ever looked at the video card information. The video card processor would take the computer information, the digital information, the information from the CPU, and make it into sound information. It would be the one that translated whatever the computer wanted into sound. The converter, and there's 2 types, one will convert analog to digital, and the other one will convert digital to analog. Remember from our previous discussion on sound that sound more or less works as a wave. The computer cannot store the sound information as a WAV file. It cannot, well, not a WAV file, but it can't store it as an analog file. It can't store it as waves of sound. What has to happen is the sound has to be converted into digital information. Now, vice versa, if you're listening to sound, like, for example, right now you're listening to my voice, you wouldn't want to hear a bunch of beep, 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 beep. Okay, that is digital. That doesn't do you any good. So the computer has to translate those beeps, that digital information, into analog information. So the converters are analog to digital and digital to analog. From me to the computer, analog, digital. From the computer to me, digital to analog. And the third component is the sample rate generator. And this allows the sound card to record and output at various sample rates. When I started the stream, I had the option of audio quality, and I got to choose which type of audio quality I wanted, and I chose 44 kilohertz. So the quality has become better. Now I could lower the audio quality to less of a sample rate. Also, I'm noticing the number of viewers I have is way more than are actually in class. If you're trying to text me something, unfortunately our school district where we're broadcasting out of seems to be blocking the text chat, so I'm not able to see anything that you're typing out there. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm unable to see actually any text. But we have a moderator today. Josh is our moderator. So if Josh is in the room, type hi real quick. He's our moderator. He's making sure everyone behaves. If you'd like to be a moderator as well, you need to register with Ustream and let me know. Basically what that means is that he has the power. He can kick anybody out of the room. So behave. Connections. Depending on the quality, read this as cost of the sound card. You might have various types of connections available. The typical connection that you're going to see, not so much how to insert a card into a computer, but how you plug things in, is the 1/8 mini jack. Just remember it's the mini jack. This might actually come up as an A+ question. The mini jack is what you typically plug things into. So for example, and I'm going to unplug my sound. Let me turn my volume really soft so I don't get feedback here. This is, I'm doing dual monitors. I have my laptop and I've got another monitor over here with a speaker built in. This is a mini jack. This is a connection that I will plug into my laptop for audio out. This is actually bringing sound out of my laptop into the secondary monitor that I have that has speakers built in. So that is a mini jack. Some of the connections have standard colors, and yes, you need to know these colors. And I do mean you need to know these colors. The A+, for whatever reason, will ask you colors on the exam. They'll ask you, what color does this do? What color does this do? So you need to be aware of the colors. The line out, which I just showed you, this takes sound from the computer and brings it out to speakers, headsets, recording equipment. It's kind of a basic default way to get music out of the computer. The color is going to be lime green. Now, I just said you need to know the colors. The A+ exam is not going to ask you which shade of green line out is. They're not going to say, is it lime green, is it Kelly green, is it forest? They're not going to ask you that. At least they shouldn't. They're going to ask you, is it green, is it blue, is it pink, is it purple? So know that it's lime green. The line in lets you play sound from other devices. So for example, we had a situation on our campus, this was a couple of months ago, where a student wanted to play his Xbox 360. And he was able to attach his Xbox 360 to a computer monitor, but the monitor didn't have the proper sound output. You could not connect his sound from the Xbox 360 to the speakers. Well, it's no fun to play Xbox 360 or any game without sound. So what we did is we actually were very clever about this. We took an adapter and we went from the Xbox 360 into the computer itself. So we connected the Xbox 360 sound into the computer via the line in. We then fed back the sound to the speakers on the computer through his headset. So it was interesting. We managed to conquer it. It was fun. But the line in is what I'm trying to get at. The line in is how you bring in sound into the computer. This is light blue. The microphone is pink, and that does what it says it does. It's a microphone. It allows microphone input into the computer. It allows you to record or sample things that you want to be sampled, things you want to record. The game port, this is going out of date with the advent of USB and more devices like joysticks using USB. We really don't see game ports on computers anymore. It is gold. It is also known as the MIDI port. The connection has all but disappeared, like I said. And here is something very important you need to know for the A+ exam. The MIDI port and the video port both have 15 pins. The video port has 15 pins in 3 rows. The MIDI port, the game port, has 15 pins in 2 rows. You need to know that for the A+ exam. That is a traditional question they ask. So once again, video, 15 pins, 3 rows. MIDI, game port, 15 pins, 2 rows. Here is a picture of a sound card, and you can see hopefully the line in, the light blue, the microphone, the pink, the line out, the green, and the MIDI or joystick port right there in the gold. And if you want to count or pause it, you can see there's 15 pins and 2 rows. Characteristics of a sound card. You have, of course, the motherboard interface, how it connects to the motherboard. We have PCI, PCI Express, USB, and card bus. The PCI is been declared a legacy bus, so we're going to see everything switching over to PCI Express in the next few years. If you have a laptop, this is really kind of neat. If you have a laptop and you want to get better sound quality, for example, I'm using a MacBook Pro. It's got an excellent video card, which you pay for, but it's got an excellent video card built into the casing of the laptop. But the sound, you know, the sound is laptop sound. Not that great. If I wanted to go more professional to my sound quality, I could buy a USB sound card. Or I could buy a card bus sound card and actually plug it into my laptop and get, you know, really good sound effects, really good sound quality, etc., etc. Don't really want it, don't really need it, so I'm not going to spend the money. A synthesizer type, again, if you remember from the previous discussion, we talked about FM synthesis or wavetable synthesis. The FM synthesis, just refresh your memory, is like listening to an old Donkey Kong video game, an old Nintendo game, you know, the dun 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 dun. It's not real music, it's synthesized, it's trying to imitate the real noise. The wavetable is actual waves, actual files of real sound effects, real musical instruments, all that fun stuff. Channels, how many channels do you have? 2, 4, 5.1, 7.1, 16. This is how many separate outputs you can actually have coming out of the computer. 2 would be stereo, which we're going to talk about in the next presentation when we start talking about speakers. We'll look at what 5.1 means, we'll look at what 7.1 means, we'll look at what 2 means. 2 is stereo, 5.1, 5 being the number of speakers. So if I have 5.1, I have 5 speakers. If I have 7.1, I have 7 speakers. If I have 22.2, yes, I have 22 speakers. So 5.1 is surround sound. 16 would just be sick. It would just be, you know, a bunch of speakers, really good sound. Signal to noise. This is kind of confusing in some ways. If you think about it, what you're experiencing is right now signal to noise. As I'm recording, there is background noise being picked up. There's a hiss. How much of my voice is being heard compared to the background noise, compared to that hiss in the background, the noise? The higher the number in this case, the better off you are. So let's say you're listening on a really, really cheap computer. You're going to hear my voice, but you're also going to hear in the background. That hiss is the background noise. So if you hear my voice and you also hear going on as I'm speaking, you don't have that good signal to noise ratio. If you spend the $400 for the, you know, the Uber Deluxe awesome sound card, you really shouldn't be hearing a lot of background noise. This is kind of reminiscent of, I remember when records were out and then we switched to CDs. And if you ever made a CD out of a record, you kind of got a lot of background, you know, the sound of the needle, the kind of scratchy background. Let's see what else we have. Well, that's it. So, not a lot to talk about in this one. We wanted to keep it short. If you want to find sound cards, if you want to look at current sound cards, my suggestion is to go to newegg.com. Not that they're the best, but that's kind of my default retail store of choice for online hardware goods. I should probably charge them for advertising. But the sound cards themselves you can look at. They range anywhere from price from, you know, dirt cheap to a couple $100. I was on Newegg the other day, and, well, you know what? Let me just go there. Whoops. Go Newegg. And we'll take a look at some sound cards real quick. Computer hardware, sound cards. Sound cards. If you've never been to newegg.com, again, I'm not pushing them. I'm not saying that they're the awesome out there, but I do like to use them. They are relatively inexpensive compared to, let's say, a brick and mortar store, meaning a store that you actually can go into. I've never had any problems with them. They're usually pretty good in shipping. The only complaint I have about Newegg is sometimes their shipping takes a little longer than it should. They used to have a feature where you could rush processing. The rushing of the processing was just as good as the actual rushing of the order. So here are the sound cards. And let's say I want to look at different channels. I want surround sound. Well, surround sound, if you remember, was 5.1. So they have 17, and I don't know if you can see this too clearly because of compression. but 5.1 is what I want. So I'm going to look at 5.1 sound cards. And let's look at the highest prices first. Go. I think it's already searching that way. Here's a 5.1, 79, so 80 bucks there. Here's an M Audio. This one's $63. Creative, which is a well-known brand, $53. We used to have to install Creative and sound cards before they became integrated on motherboards. That was fun. So the 5.1 cards are not that expensive. I mean, we're looking at the most expensive one being 80 bucks. That's not too bad. Let's look at something a little bit more expensive. Let's look at the 7.1s. That would be 7 speakers and 1 subwoofer, which we'll talk about subwoofers later. Ooh, 350 bucks. That's a little bit more expensive. The Asus, which is $200, again, a little bit more expensive. Another Asus, that's 180 bucks. Creative, 180 bucks. So you can probably, ooh, headphones. This is pretty cool. Check this out. 7.1 channel headphones. Looks like you get the headphone. And the sound card to go with it. That's pretty cool. How much is that bad boy? 150 bucks. I actually had a student 2 years ago who had a 5.1 headphones, and they were really cool. What would happen is you would hear the character, you know, you'd be playing a game, and you could actually hear people walking behind you. It was neat. Let's see what else we have here. So we have the 7.1. We can look at different interfaces. We can look at PCI. PCI is still king pretty much for connections. If you can't see it, I'll read it off to you. PCI, they have 51 cards. PCI Express, they have 4 cards. USB, they have 13 cards. Let's take a look at USB real quick. So the most expensive one is 200 bucks. So those are sound cards. Check them out. Most people don't really pay much attention to their sound quality because really the integrated speakers or the integrated sound cards and sound processors on your computers are usually enough. Unless you're an audiophile, unless you're just really in love with music, the built-in audio processor will be just fine for you, which is completely opposite of the video cards. If you're a gamer, you definitely need to go buy yourself a video card, you know, expansion card for your computer. But for most people, the built-in audio processor, the built-in audio card will work just fine. I'm sure people out there who are going, no, you're out of your mind. But, you know, unless you really, really want, you know, the surround sound, the built-in is just fine. Save yourself some money. All right, well, that's going to conclude our session on sound cards. Hopefully the process is becoming a little bit nicer out there. Hopefully the quality is becoming a little bit better for you. Again, we have earlier stuff. We're up to CPUs on the netcast currently as of 3/26/08 when this is being recorded, so be sure to check those out. And that's it for me. Goodbye.